What's up, you sweaty nerds and greasy degenerates? Dan Heng Imbibitor Lunae, aka Super Saiyan Dan, comes out in roughly 10 days from now, and it's time to start pre-farming for Dan Heng if you want him ready to go on day 1. Now, just something to be aware of, there are 2 new bosses coming to patch 1.3, and one of them you're going to need to farm out in order to get materials to level up your Dan. So, I'll let you know what boss that is, I'll let you know what material that is, but what's the other stuff you need to farm for Dan? Well, we're going to let you know everything you need to know to get Dan Heng ready to go on day 1, so let's get into it and stop wasting our time. So, we found out together on my live stream during the 1.3 special programming that there's going to be 2 new bosses coming to the game, Shape of Puppetry and Shape of Abomination, and Shape of Puppetry is what we will need to get the Ascension Materials for our Dan Heng Imbibitor Lunae. It's known as the Suppressing Edict. And, just so that you guys know, we are going to also need to farm out Fushuan. If you guys are going for Fushuan, we're going to need to get the Ascension Material Nail of the Ape from the Ape Abomination boss that's coming in 1.3. But you're not here for Fushuan, you're here for Super Saiyan Dan. So here you go, these are the materials that you're going to need to farm out. And yes, I'm using Blade's sword as the divider there. And for those that don't have Blade and are jealous that I used his divider, here you go. Here's for those that are jealous of people that have Blade. You can look at it without the Blade dividers. But we'll go ahead and go into what are the numbers, what are the actual amounts that you're going to need for your materials, so let's jump into it. Let's start off first by going over the Suppressing Edict, which is the new Ascension material you're going to need to farm out for Dan Heng. You can farm this from the new boss in 1.3, Shape of Puppetry, so you will have to wait until 1.3 to start farming this, and you'll need a total of 65 of this particular material in order to get your Dan Heng ready. Okay, now let's talk about how expensive Dan Heng is going to be. With any character, leveling them from level 1 to 80 is rather expensive. I have rounded up slightly these numbers so that it's easier for you guys to take in and get ready for. And obviously you're going to min-max your character, so you might not need all of these credits in order to get it done. So, it's going to cost 888,000 credits in order to take him from level 1 to 80. It's going to cost roughly 2.2 million credits to level up all his skills completely, so you probably won't be using all of that because you might leave your skills a little bit lower, like at 8 or something. His traces, similarly, you might not level them up all the way, but it's going to take 803,000 traces to level up his traces completely, and the grand total for all of that is roughly 3.9 million credits total. But if you're min-maxing the character, leaving a lot of stuff at level 8, things like that, you probably will only need roughly 2.2 million in order to do that. This is just the total amount to fully level him up completely. Okay, so you're going to need to farm out Funtilia for the Regret of Infinite Ochema Trace Materials. She is a weekly boss. Thankfully, she's already out in the game. So start farming her now so that you have plenty of these ready to go for your day 1 Dan Heng. You're also going to need Tracks of Destiny as trace material. You will need 8 of them to level up all of your traces. And for level up material for the character itself, you can use 1,160 brown books, just as a representation of how much you will need. You could also use the Traveler's Guides, aka the purple books. You would need 290 of those. So factor that in as best as you can. I'm not going to do personalized math for you. I'm going to give you 2 different options for you there. Okay, now let's get into the meat and potatoes of the Trace and Ascension materials here. Just be aware that all of these values are rough estimates or rounded up slightly, so you might need slightly different numbers here, but if you follow this guide to the T, you should be ready to go for Dan Heng on day 1. Now let's get into it. You're going to need 41 Immortal Scionets for the trace materials for Dan Heng, but you're also going to need 15 of them as Ascension material. So you're going to need a total of 56 Immortal Scionets in order to level up your Dan Heng and give him the traces he needs. But you're a wise degenerate, and you know it doesn't stop there. You're going to need 56 Immortal Arrow Blossoms in order to level up his traces as well. You're going to also need 15 Immortal Arrow Blossoms for his Ascension Materials, making a total of 71 Immortal Arrow Blossoms for Dan Heng. And of course we will need 58 Immortal Lumen Twigs for our Ascension Material for Super Saiyan Dan, as well as 15 Immortal Lumen Twigs for our Ascension Material, making a grand total of 73 Immortal Lumen Twigs for Super Saiyan Dan. And we aren't out of the woods yet. Nope, we're just getting started. You know it, I know it, your mom knows it, and you can trust me on that one. Alright, so with these next trace materials, just so that you guys know, these trace materials will also be needed for a light cone that you may need to level for your character as well. So far, I have only talked about the character itself. That has been the main focus so far. If there's time left towards the end of the video, I might discuss light cones in a minute, but more importantly, for the character itself, for trace materials, you're going to need 18 shattered blades. You're also going to need 69 lifeless blades. Nice. And I wanted to point something out about the lifeless blades that I thought was interesting and you guys might like. These are destruction character trace materials, and if you notice on the blade itself that is broken right here, you'll notice that all of these blades are actually kind of broken, which is somewhat interesting. It reminds us of Blade's sword. You can see the glowing fractals in here as well, and in Blade's, I think it's in his ultimate animation, his blade actually kind of breaks or something like that. It's like it's Mara struck or something. So I just thought that was random and interesting. And we're also going to need 139 World Breaker blades, which look a little bit different than Blade's blade. Anyways, let's stop talking about Blade. We're talking about Super Saiyan Dan right now, right? Alright, now since I know y'all are going to complain about it, I'll go ahead and give some values for a light cone. I'm basing the light cone values that I'm giving you off of the light cone values from a 5-star light cone that is also a destruction light cone, okay? So the values could be slightly different, but they should work. So don't get upset if you weren't paying attention, because these values are going to be completely separate from the previous values I gave you for the character, so the totals will change if you also need to level up a light cone. Moving forward, you're going to need 4 extinguished cores for the light cone, as well as 12 glimmering cores. Again, this is for the values of a destruction light cone that I was comparing with. You're also going to need 15 squirming cores. You will also need 23 shattered blade. You will also need 18 lifeless blade and 13 world breaker blade. And don't forget, you will need roughly 385,000 credits to level up your light cone all the way to 80. As with many of these videos, they do take a lot of time and effort to make them, so I do hope you all appreciate them. So, if this video was entertaining to you in any way, shape, or form, please leave a like and subscribe, because if you don't subscribe, I'm gonna come to your house in the middle of the night, like the boogeyman, and I'm gonna steal your favorite midnight snacks. Probably those Oreos, or maybe those Pringles you got in the pantry. Maybe the lasagna you got there in the refrigerator. I'm not picky. I'll come for whatever you got. So like and subscribe for more.